Welcome to our live stream. Dr. Cynthia Clark is an industrial engineer turned acupuncturist and functional nutritionist whose work focuses on helping people navigate complex biological systems under sustained stress. With a background in systems engineering and years of clinical experience in Chinese medicine and metabolic health, she specializes in cases where standard protocols fail. Individuals who are capable, disciplined, and resilient, yet chronically overextended. Dr. Clark is a multi-time Ironman finisher and endurance athlete, currently training for ultra-distance open water swimming and cycling events. Her understanding of long-duration stress, adaptation, and recovery extends beyond athletics into real life, caregiving, and trauma-informed care. She works closely with high-capacity individuals, clinicians, and caregivers whose nervous systems and physiology have reorganized around survival rather than longevity. She is the creator of Decode Your Dolphin, a systems navigation framework designed to help clinicians and clients understand biological load, adaptive patterns, and recovery windows without relying on motivation, force, or unrealistic timelines. Through her work, Dr. Clark teaches a regulated, systems-based approach to health that prioritizes clarity, sustainability, and long-term resilience.
I am so grateful to each of you for being willing to share some of your time today. For many of you that this is a brand new way of looking at things, I really commend you on being willing to look at things in a different way. I hope you're really going to enjoy today's presentation. I have gotten so much out of the study of this, and I'm so excited to share it with you. If you hear me stutter a little bit, it's because my excitement is a little bit more than my mouth can push through at a time. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, there we go. All right. Blood. So we're talking about blood today, and I really want to invite you in to take a moment and sit with this aspect of blood. This beautiful quote by Siddhartha Mukherjee, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning oncologist, is the blood itself teaches us that life is change, and there is so much power in the blood. When we go and we get blood work done, and typically the way it goes is we go to the very clinical setting, we get the lab draw done, we go to the doctor's office, they say everything's fine except for this, or we need to put you on this drug. Hopefully, in the best case scenarios, right? But it doesn't tell us very much about the story of what's going on inside of us. And so I want to invite you into that space for just a moment with the intention of greatly serving. So just want to allow that intention to permeate that this is what our desire is today, is to greatly serve every participant that's here. Let's talk about blood, because blood is one of the most powerful images that we humans have, right? You remember when you were kids and you wanted to make a pact or a promise with a friend? What would you do? You'd prick your finger and you'd be blood brothers or blood sisters, right? Like it's this very deep, visceral, even children understand the power of blood. We have it in our language, in our religion. So there's some really cool songs, Power in the Blood. Alan Jackson did a cover of it, but it's an old gospel song. Johnny Cash did Are You Washed in the Blood? Again, an old gospel song. Elvis did a bunch of those. And these are religious references to Jesus's ultimate sacrifice, the blood of the Lamb. And we also have kind of more modern references to this. So one of the song that has been playing in my head as I've been working on this presentation for you for the past several weeks is In the Blood of Eden by Peter Gabriel. And this is a modern image of unity and sacrifice. And then you might remember the U2 song, Sunday, Bloody Sunday. I'm a child of the 80s, so that was a big one. And that's like political homage of sacrifice in Northern Ireland, right? But it's big and it's powerful, and it transcends any specific culture. It transcends any specific generation. right? And it transcends multiple different religions. It's it's visceral. So there's a great deal of power in this that if we just know how to look at it, that's worthy of more than just a cursory, here you go, you're fine, or you're going to need a statin in a couple of years. And I also just want to thank my teacher. So for 14 years, I provided a functional medicine analysis of blood work that was pretty good. Many of you have been through it. But a few months ago, I was lucky enough to get to start studying with Mark Ryan. He's the author of How to Heal Hashimoto's and a few other books. And he has taken blood work to an entirely new level and deeply contemplated it through the lens of TCM. He built on the work of Randine Lewis's book, The Spirit of the Blood, and it's his framework that I'm honored to get to present today. What I have learned from him has transformed the way I look at both blood work and TCM. And I couldn't be more excited to share this with you today. I have to tell you that I have felt a little bit over the past 14 years like I had these two um, pillars, that I had the Chinese medicine and I had the functional medicine. And like I was always kind of walking with one foot in one house or the other. And it was necessary. We're in modern times, right? It's necessary. But now I feel like those have come into coherence on the same path. And so it brings me peace to get to practice this way as I have a more powerful lens to get to share with you. And I find that as I've started sharing this with my clients, that like it locks in and they get it in a way that all of my standing at the whiteboard and talking about spleen Qi deficiency just didn't hit home before. So why oh, before I go in, is there any questions or comments? Everybody can hear me. I'm coming across okay. Any questions or comments before we continue? Okay, good. So why do this? Why look at blood work through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine? The first is because we read between the lines. Western medicine often focuses on disease thresholds. Is this high enough or low enough to be a medical problem? With TCM, we're looking at patterns of imbalance before disease shows up. So here's a quick example. Your ferritin, which is one of these blood markers, your ferritin might be in range, but if it's low normal and you're tired, dizzy, and have poor memory, I see blood deficiency. And that puts us into a specific category of Chinese herbal formulas that can really help you correct this innate imbalance before it becomes a problem that causes more problems in your body. Because iron is a really, really big key part of the functioning of your body. And your labs might not diagnose diabetes, but if you crash after meals and crave sugar, I know your spleen Qi is weak and your blood sugar regulation is faltering. And I will just confess that I'm one of these people. My lab work is perfect on my blood sugar regulation. My glucose, my HbA1c is perfect, perfect, perfect. But it is really easy for me to get sleepy after I eat if I don't take my digestive enzymes. So I know that even though I've got an A+ on my lab work, I know that I have some spleen Qi deficiency. And in order to prevent, ultimately, I would move into blood sugar dysregulation if I wasn't attentive to my digestion now. And part of the reason that I am so attentive to that is because I have diabetes on both sides of my family, and I've seen what those diseases have. They're awful. I mean, they're just awful. So I want to know if I'm having ice cream, whether I'm choosing like, oh, I might be a little sleepy, or this is the last bite I get to put in my mouth before I'm going to be on insulin. Uh, the circulation to my foot is going to start to decrease, and I'm eventually going to need a toe cut off. Those are two really different decisions, right? And I just want to know which one I'm making when I have my treat. Okay, sorry if I got a little dark there. It helps me keep things in the right place in my brain. Second is because we connect both physical and emotional health. In TCM, your blood is not just substance. It carries memory, information, emotion, and spirit. And if we look at it from an energy perspective standpoint, we can even see how it carries multi-generational information, right? So if your labs hint at inflammation or stagnation and you feel stuck, anxious, or foggy, we see a story of emotional and energetic congestion, not just lab values. Through the lens of TCM, blood is information, experience, and emotion. So now we're going to get a little into the next aspects of this, the next levels of blood, right? Blood has a role in storing Shen in spirit, Hun, ethereal soul, and emotional patterns. My best example of this is imagine a day that you have been, let's say it's the end of vacation week. You've been at the beach all week, out in the sun all day long. You've gotten super dehydrated because you're living it up. You're having your margaritas while you're sitting on the beach. You're getting all the sun. You're not drinking your water or your electrolytes. And your blood is now, you're dehydrated. So your blood is like thicker, right? And you're not thinking as clearly. Now, we all know that when we're dehydrated, we don't think as clearly, especially if we're dehydrated and we got a margarita in the mix. But if we're in that space for a length of time, even several days, even a week long at the beach, things start to get a little funny. So if you ever want to see an example of this, go to a beach grocery store at like 10 o'clock at night, one of those grocery stores that's right on the beach. And you'll see people in there that maybe they're transient, so they're really out in the sun a lot, and they're not even cooling down at night. And you'll see the crazy guy on aisle 6. He's going to be somewhere in there, right? And he's talking to himself, and he's got stuff going on, and that's what we call Shen disturbance, and it's happening because his blood is disturbed. So blood stasis and stagnation have both physical and emotional implications. Oh, and we can prevent these things from happening, right? Like that's the value of looking at this. So TCM reads blood through the pulse and the tongue. That's what we're famous for, is acupuncturists like to look at tongue and pulse and pattern identification, which we get through asking questions. And now, and this is just mind-blowing. It's why I'm totally falling in love with this style of practice, introducing this into my practice this way. And now through lab work, now the lab work reviews that I do aren't just functional medicine, but they're also this traditional Chinese medicine framework. Okay. Number 3, we treat the pattern, not just the number. So instead of chasing one lab marker, like just giving iron for low ferritin, we ask, why is your body not making or holding on to iron? Is your digestion system, your spleen weak? Like my story earlier, right? I've got gold star lab work, but my spleen chi is weak and I know it. Is stress or liver stealing your chi? And we support your body holistically so it can restore balance across multiple systems. Let's just talk about liver chi stagnation for a moment. For those of you that are in acupuncture school, liver chi stagnation is like the most famous diagnosis, especially liver overacting on spleen, because it's what all acupuncture students go through while they're going through school, is they're going through the stress of learning so much new information and taking exams regularly. And, maybe they've moved to a new city, they're trying to make friends with new people. All this stuff is going on, right? Take a moment and apply this filter to your life. Maybe you are a caretaker for a loved one. Maybe you have stressful relationships with some family members. All of those are going to affect your liver, and the liver is responsible for like 30,000 different actions in the body. And when the liver starts to get stagnant, we can look at this through genetic work and look at, okay, do we have some detox pathway congestion that's just like how this person is genetically wired? Do we have it that's like, okay, they're maybe wired okay, but maybe their diet, maybe they're stress eating. I once ate an entire box of like Whitman's chocolates one time because I was like so stressed out about something that I was just like, bah! So that was my liver overacting on my spleen. I don't do these things regularly, but I am a human being, and and this is how bodies work, right? So that's a liver qi stagnation example. And finally, we look at optimal numbers versus normal, and that's really important because when you do go get your labs read, typically in just having a conventional Western medicine view of it, those labs are going to be in the whether or not you need drugs or surgery now kind of category. When we look at it through functional medicine metrics, we're looking for what can we prevent from happening. And then when we also apply the filter of traditional Chinese medicine, we're looking further to what are the underlying patterns that we can optimize to strengthen this person over time rather than let the lab work start to move out of line. Okay, I've got one more slide here, and then I'm going to do another check-in. So please help me track. Many of you I haven't met before, and I really want to be of service to you. So let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow. Finally, number 4, you become part of your healing story. The whole purpose of this is for you. If you walk out of an appointment that's done lab work review and you have no idea what to do to improve your health or to live a better life or to meet your personal goals, then I submit to you that that did not serve you. If you go through that appointment and you can see yourself and you resonate with the information that you got and you are motivated to take action in the ways that your doctor, your practitioner share with you will help serve you, and you have a clear plan going forward, then I submit to you that helps you to become the main character in your healing story and not just a side character. Lab work becomes more than a report, it becomes a map. It's a map of how you process life. It's how your emotions affect your energy, and it's how your digestion, mood, and sleep are all connected. When you see your health in this way, it's empowering. You're not broken, you're out of balance, and we can fix that. Okay, how am I doing on pace? How am I doing on information? If anybody needs me to shift anything, then just let me know now before I continue, because you're the person that this is for. Okay. Right. So we're going to go through 2 case studies today. And the first one is a 30-year-old male. These are both real people that are clients in my clinic. The first one is a 30-year-old male. His primary complaints were fatigue, sugar cravings, brain fog, stress, and poor sleep. And I will share with you that this had been going on for at least a year and a half, most of these longer than that. And he had worked with me before, and kind of like some progress, but some ups and downs, and no big wins, nothing that shifted the things that were most important to him. So when he came back and he said, look, I'm here and it's bad and I need help and I'm on all these medications and I'm jacked, uh, I said, you have perfect timing. I let's do this. And he was totally on board with that. And we had a fantastic experience. And here's what we found. And he gave me permission to share this with you. So the first thing that we found, thank you, Dr. Harvey. The first thing that we found is that here's what it looks like. Like, here's what just going to the conventional Western MD would look like, right? He would say, okay, well, yep, your ferritin's a little low, your RBC is in range, hemoglobin's a little bit high, hematocrit's a little bit high, HSCRP is fine, and insulin is fine. I, could everyone check to make sure they're muted? I'm getting some background noise that's tough to hear.
I found this pan organizer and it really changed things for me in my cabinet. I just set it sideways. You can also set it like this, but my cabinet's not tall enough, so I set it sideways and I can put.
So somebody's got a television on. Could everyone please mute?
They know exactly where to put the pan.
And if you don't know how to mute, it's in the.
Everywhere. Try this to organize them. This is
it's under participants.
Billy, your phone is not muted.
Ice melt. What you do is reuse a Parmesan cheese container, put your ice melt in here, and when it's going to be icy or cold out,
there we go. Okay. So I've muted everybody there. Okay. Learning new things. Yay. Neoplasticity of the brain. Okay. So that's what the first appointment would be like. What would this look like if we just went to the Western labs? His TSH and T4 were normal. His alkaline phosphatase is low, but that's functional medicine range. But now when we look at it through the functional medicine labs and the interpretation of this, we see a different story. That ferritin is still low, and that's what we call blood deficiency. His red blood cell count is high, and the hemoglobin and the hematocrit all high, and that tells us we have blood stasis. Remember I was talking before about that guy at the beach all day, or you've been at a week-long beach retreat and drinking margaritas and not drinking enough water? That's blood stasis. So in a gentleman, those three numbers, they could come up if he was taking testosterone, but actually the kind of the bigger key for in this particular case was hydration. So his HSCRP was elevated. That's another sign of inflammation and heat. And insulin was upper normal. So he's showing signs of early insulin resistance, and he's only 30. We also look at a symptom survey that he fills out. It's called a metabolic assessment form. And this shows us that he's reporting blood sugar regulation really high, 81%. That spleen Qi deficiency and also blood deficiency. Remember that story I was telling earlier about, like, I've got A+ blood markers, but I know that I have spleen Qi deficiency because I get a little sleepy after I eat if I don't take my enzymes. So he's got that too, and he's only 30. The last thing we want is for a 30-year-old gentleman to be looking at prediabetes. His metabolic function is also very out of line, and that tells us that we're looking at something in Chinese medicine that we call dampness. Maybe I'll get into that if somebody has a question about it later, because it's a big cool thing, but it's basically like, we're just going to call it clumpiness in the blood. There's more to the story, but clumpiness in the blood, and then spleen stomach disharmony. He's also got this really high stress response, and that heart Shen disturbance. So going back to the grocery store, at the beach at night, 10 o'clock at night, when you see somebody in there that's, that's living rough, and he's out in the sun all day long and he's out in the heat all night long, and they start to have this disconnection, that's that heart Shen disturbance and kidney yin yang deficiency. And now we're getting into like some root problems. Like, usually kidney yin yang issues we see much later in life, not in a 30-year-old gentleman. And finally, hepatobiliary function, which is going to be that liver Qi stagnation, that damp heat. If you're a client in my clinic, then you've probably heard me talk about dampness many times. But the liver Qi stagnation is going to be imbalanced moods. He's going to have trouble being the person that he wants to show up as in life, like, being a good partner, being a good parent, even being a good child. So this might be a little in depth for some of you. So if your brain has had enough and you want to just like stare out at the window for a moment, that's totally fine. For those of you that are a bit more detail oriented, or you want a deeper dive, we're going to take a moment and just talk about that so that you can see the correlation. It's going to probably take us about 2 minutes to do this. So spleen Qi deficiency and blood deficiency. So what really maps to that? The low ferritin, the hypoglycemia symptoms, the fatigue and the poor memory. The foundation of blood production is impaired, especially postprandial. That just means after eating, fatigue and sugar cravings. So the liver gallbladder Qi stagnation with damp heat. How are we getting there? This is us showing our work. This is the low ALP, the high RBCs, the irritability and the sluggish bile flow, and it reflects emotional constraint and dietary stagnation. The heart Shen disturbance and the kidney yin yang imbalance, right? This is like bigger stuff. This is starting to affect how he's able to think and function. So it's poor sleep, it's mood swings, it's high stress load, and it's a core driver of neurological and emotional symptoms. Blood stasis, we see that in the elevated HCT, hematocrit, hemoglobin, and red blood cell count, and in the mild brain fog. And that's possibly from constrained chi flow or unresolved inflammation. And then finally, the mild inflammation or heat, we see that in the elevated HSCRP, the moderate brain inflammation, and the early sign of internal heat damaging blood and Shen. Okay, so you can come back if you've been taking a little brain break there. So putting it all together, this case clearly illustrates how functional lab data and TCM diagnostics complement one another. So that war that I had inside of me for like 14 years is finally in a treaty, right? Revealing a comprehensive holistic picture. Rather than isolated metrics, now ferritin isn't just a lab value, it reveals early spleen and liver blood deficiency. We don't want to keep a gentleman on iron for very long. We do want to fix the underlying cause. Elevated RBCs, hemoglobin, hematocrit don't just indicate blood thickness, they reflect blood stasis, which is a stagnation impacting brain clarity. And the metabolic assessment form reinforces a central TCM pattern, the spleen not generating blood, the liver not storing it smoothly, and heart Shen disturbed by stress and dysregulation. So the take home, when we sat down to have this conversation, this gentleman said, "Is this why I feel like I've been losing my mind?" He was on multiple different medications, antipsychotics, antidepressants, trying to balance all of this and really, really doing his best to try to get through life and to show up as the human being that he wanted to be. And I mean, this is a really cool cat, right? Like he's the kind of guy that like really dedicates himself to try to be conscious and aware. He does all the spiritual work. He does, he's just doing his work the best he can. So he received supplements to address his iron levels, his GABA, digestive enzymes, and a special type of fish oil to help his brain. And he received a TCM herbal formula to soothe his liver and strengthen his spleen chi. He additionally received dietary recommendations as a 3-day meal plan to support his spleen, heart, and liver, also exercise guidelines and specific hydration instructions for him. And we'll retest in 30 to 90 days to chart his progress. We're actually going to do one test in 30 days for just a couple of the markers and then another in 90 days. Okay, any questions about any of that before I move on to our 61-year-old postmenopausal female blood work? And let me check the chat. Oh, okay. Yeah, those are good questions. I will come to those at the end there. Okay, so this is my visual of how client M felt before and after he even just got the news, right? Like that feeling seen finally, and knowing that there were reasons for why he was feeling what he was feeling, that he wasn't being, possessed or had dark energies attached to him. It's like that there's legitimacy to those things, but for this particular gentleman, he really needed to drink more water and take these supplements and change some things about his physical body functioning in the world so that he had more resilience to have strong energy fields. Okay, here's client 2, client F, which is our 61-year-old female. Her primary complaints are blood sugar. She's concerned about her blood sugar, her heart, her nutrition, her bowels, which have been improving, but they aren't where she'd like them to be yet, and her hearing. And I did this a little bit tighter. So we're going to do the big picture first, the executive summary first. So this 61-year-old client presents with early signs of metabolic imbalance, including elevated cholesterol, A1C, and triglycerides, alongside subtle thyroid hormone elevations and mild anemia, all aligning with significant metabolic assessment form scores in hypothyroid, menopausal, and fluid balance and metabolic function categories. So functionally, these findings point to subclinical metabolic stress, impaired glycemic control, and early stage thyroid dysregulation. From a traditional Chinese medicine, so that's what TCM means, her profile reflects a foundational pattern of spleen qi deficiency with dampness, compounded by kidney yin deficiency, blood deficiency, and liver qi stagnation. And by the way, all of those are complex patterns often seen in postmenopausal women navigating hormonal shifts, fluid imbalance, and chronic low-grade inflammation. Integrative treatments should focus on nourishing blood and yin, supporting spleen qi, resolving dampness, and gently moving liver qi. So here's what the labs look like. So the first thing that we see is, on the left, we have these conventional, and you can see, okay, yeah, we've got two that are red over here. It's the cholesterol and the hemoglobin. When we go over to the right, we see we've got cholesterol, hemoglobin, and monocytes that are all actually elevated. The next that we see is the LDL is a little high. The non-HDL cholesterol is a little bit high, but when we go over to the functional ranges, we see she's got free T3 and free T4 that are high. She's got mean corpuscular volume that's high. Her TIBC, which is one of those blood markers, is high, and her triglycerides are all, high enough that we start paying attention to and incorporating them into our diagnostic window through the TCM lens. And then finally, we've got her MCHC. This is another blood, anemia type marker, and that's low. And then her homocysteine in the functional ranges is low. So, and also her non-HDL cholesterol doesn't show up as out of range, and the LDL doesn't show up as out of range in the functional analysis. So when we map the metabolic assessment form findings with functional and TCM correlations, we see on the left side, those are the primary things that she's dealing with: the hypothyroid, the menopausal symptoms. These are the categories: fluid balance, metabolic function, and environmental sensitivities in upper GI. So this score here is like, how bad is it on a scale of 1 to 100? So 50% is pretty high. That tells us we've got pretty clear hypothyroid. In TCM, we'll describe that as blood deficiency. And in her particular case, her type of hypothyroidism is kidney yin deficiency. That is not everybody's. That's the analysis of her blood work. So that indicates slowed metabolism, fatigue, and cold intolerance, all of which she's experiencing. And she's also having hot flashes, mood swings, and disrupted sleep. And those are also signs of kidney yin deficiency. So she's got that imbalance of temperature going on. The fluid balance is a little bit less. It's 40%, but still very present. And that's going to show us the kidney yin deficiency, the spleen qi deficiency, and she's going to experience that as swelling, dryness, dehydration, and fluid retention. Her metabolic function is 38%, so enough that it's getting her attention, and it's really getting her attention because she's got that stuck weight that she can't get to move even when she eats great and exercises. And here, that's our spleen qi deficiency with dampness. And dampness is probably the thing you can most think of when you think about that stuck weight, ladies. Like, why can't I get this to move? I seem to be doing everything right. It might be the type of food that you're eating, and it might be when you're eating. I've another confession. I'm confessing all of my terrible habits to you this week, but I recently got engaged, and this past week we got to do the cake tastings with this really cool a bakery that specializes in allergy-free, because I've got some people that are coming to my wedding that are allergic to everything under the sun. Oh my gosh, I had no idea you could have that many allergies. Anyway, so this very kind lady set up the sample box for us, and they are so good and they are so delicious. And so every night this week, after I eat my perfect food all day long and do everything right, I've had little bites of her delicious little samples, and like, yeah, I can, and that's going to add to dampness, both because of it's sweet, and it's my favorite is the cream cheese frosting that she has. So that's like really damp. Um, I feel like all of my clients that are listening are going to be like, hey, you tell me to do all this and you've been doing it wrong. But that's damp. And then the fact that I'm eating it at night also contributes to that dampness. So, for this week that I've been conducting that experiment, I can confirm that the late night sweets definitely contribute to dampness. But I just couldn't bear to let her delicious food go to waste. Okay, and then finally, environmental sensitivity and upper GI. That's coming in at 33%, so it's a little bit less, but that's going to contribute to her liver qi stagnation and even more to her spleen qi deficiency. And she's going to experience that as reactivity to foods. So a lot of times people come to see me and I ask them if they are sensitive to any particular food, and they say no. And then I get around to asking them if there are any foods that they avoid, and they say, oh, yeah, I never have this or this or this because I'll get acid reflux or I'll get bloating or loose stools. And so that's food reactivity, and that's confirmatory, even if it's something that you're avoiding. People who have this oftentimes are particularly sensitive to fragrances, like they don't like strong smells, and they might have bloating and acid reflux. So, okay, this next one is for the detail-oriented people that want to see all of this put together so you can see, and for everyone else, you can take a little 2-minute brain break there. That's just fine. On the very left side, you'll see the cholesterol, you'll see the lab marker, you'll see the functional value, you'll see the status, whether it's high or low. I left off the conventional ones for this piece because there was so much to put on this chart. In the next, you'll see the related metabolic assessment form highlights. So that's what she's saying, and that's what matters, right? Like, this is what she's walking around with. What she's noticing is out of balance in her body. So we want to tie the lab work to her personal experiences, and then tie that to her symptoms, like what that means. Why is this important, right? Increased cardiovascular risk and metabolic balance. And then finally, over on that far right, that TCM meaning, traditional Chinese medicine meaning, so spleen qi deficiency with dampness and impaired lipid metabolism. That's like our money shot, because that's how we know, oh, this person needs to have these kinds of herbs. They need to eat this particular way, these particular types of foods. They need to do this particular type of exercise and this particular type of qigong. And that can truly be life-changing for that person. That's the difference between living strong and healthy and doing amazing things in life, or getting, like this, like you're old, you're screwed, that's all you got thing, right? Like, years ago, I had a client to come to see me. She was 33 years old, comes to see me, and she had pain in her right knee. And she had been to her doctor, and her doctor said, yeah, you're getting old now. That's just what happens. And I looked at her and I said, is your right knee the same age as your left knee? And she said, yeah. And I said, you have any problems with your left knee? And she said, no. And I said, it's not that. It's clearly not that. If it was an age problem, it would be both of your knees. So I just submit to you that there's a lot more health that we may have access to if we are attentive to, just doing the things to take care of ourselves. And you've never known this kind of information before. Most of you have never heard about the kidney deficiency and, how that might affect your diet, or spleen qi deficiency with dampness and how that might affect your diet. So we can see here her full and complete list with the homocysteine, for example, indicating detoxification problems, metabolic function, impaired methylation, possible B vitamin deficiency, and then blood deficiency and impaired liver function. So, okay, in summary, before I do that, any questions or comments about either of those two things that we've gone through so far? Okay. Got it. So somebody asked the question about what happens with someone who's had their gallbladder removed, or on sleep apnea. So let's take sleep apnea first, because the very first thing that we're going to see in sleep apnea is going to be oxygen deficiency, especially to the brain. So your brain, while it's only 2% of your body weight, uses 20% of your body's oxygen. So the first thing that we're going to say is we know with certainty that this person has chi deficiency, because oxygen is a type of chi. They have chi deficiency. And that means, like, okay, we know that they're going to be tired. Their digestive system is going to be impaired. You know, they could probably, they might even have gotten used to this. So like their new normal is, this is how much energy I have. This is what I feel like. You know, I adjust. I can get through the day. But when they actually get a good night's sleep, they have a different life experience. I had one client even who came to me and she had been having seizures, and she got diagnosed with sleep apnea and started on a CPAP machine. You know, the ones these days, they're much better than they used to be. And her seizures stopped, just totally stopped. So the oxygen really matters. It's really important. So chi deficiency would be sleep apnea. Gallbladder removal, there are certain things in functional medicine that we know that anybody who's had their gallbladder removed, there are certain things that they're just going to need support with, because their gallbladder, what it does is it holds bile, right? Your liver makes bile, and the gallbladder is just this little bladder. Remember back in the day, before we all had Stanley cups and Tervis tumblers, and if you wanted to go for a hike, you had your like bladder that you would take with you, right? That's what a gallbladder is. It's just something that holds something. It's considered a yang organ in Chinese medicine because the hollow organs are the yang organs. So it just holds the bile. But what happens is when the bile that the liver creates is either too thin or too thick, too viscous, then it starts to build up in the gallbladder, and it doesn't move through as smoothly. And that is where we start to get the gallbladder sludge or the gallbladder stones, and oftentimes when the gallbladder needs to be removed. Going upstream from that, the root cause, I have such a thing with root cause, right? We'll call it the baby root cause. Maybe it's not the ultimate root cause, but like the upstream cause of that would be liver chi stagnation. Because if the liver isn't producing the bile smoothly, then it's going to get clumpy and glumpy, and it's going to gunk up the gallbladder, and the gallbladder becomes the unfortunate messenger that gets shot. All it's doing is its job. It's just trying to hold on to that bile that comes through. But if the bile that comes through is not smooth, then it's going to cause problems. And then, you know, bile's job is to help us metabolize fat. And if we can't metabolize that fat properly, then we start having all the digestive issues. So, Jenny, did that help answer your question and put that into perspective for you? I know you were the one that put it in the chat, so I'll keep an eye on that as I go ahead and speak to this, because I want to be respectful of your time. Takeaway from this is having your lab work reviewed through the lens of TCM gives you a deeper understanding of your symptoms, a connection between body, mind, and spirit, and a personalized roadmap to healing based on centuries of wisdom and modern insight. And I thank you so much for taking the time to learn about a new approach to looking at your health. I truly commend you on your time and your mental focus today, because being willing to look at our blind spots is one of the most exciting and useful things that we can do as humans. It takes courage just to be willing to say, maybe there's something I don't know, right? Like for me, going through this process, I've been doing this way for 14 years. And, I've built my own computer program to do all of this. And I was introduced to something that revealed some blind spots for me. And I had to have courage to go, oh, this is better. I'm willing to change because this is better. So I know you're in that same space. It takes courage, it takes patience, and it takes dedication. And I deeply appreciate and am inspired by all of you for doing that today. Okay, so please know, no matter where you are in your journey, know this. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You revisit things not because you're failing, but because you're ready to go deeper. You're leveling up. So be gentle with yourself. Celebrate the small wins. Keep showing up. This is one of my favorite quotes from Rumi. Try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. You're doing beautifully. Keep going.